All right, so we talked a little bit about artificial intelligence and what it is, and talked a little bit about neural networks and how they work, and the pros and cons, and the problems that there could be, and how it may affect the education industry and some other areas like robotics. Now we're going to take a deep dive into healthcare. So let's see how AI affects the healthcare industry. All right, we have several areas here we want to look at. A Stanford study regarding ChatGPT in healthcare, the EPIC electronic health record system and how it's partnering with Microsoft. We'll look at some other vendors like Oracle, Amazon, IBM, Google. We'll look at some disruptors and some other recent news and some research caveats as well. Stanford University published a very interesting article in July 17, 2023 in JAMA. And they looked at a number of, looks like it's 30 internal medicine physicians looked at, they graded clinical notes done by humans and ChatGPT. And surprisingly, only 61% of the time could the residents determine whether or not the notes were done by ChatGPT or human. So, there's still lots of research that has to happen before anyone can rely on ChatGPT to create clinical notes. But it just shows early on in the life of AI, it seems like AI can produce some decent clinical notes. And I'm sure as time progresses, it could probably be somewhat equivalent to what a physician can do. So it'll only support and help documentation. There's some exciting news. Epic electronic health record system, for those of you who are not familiar. In fact, Northwell is in the process of converting all 26 hospitals, beginning the process to Epic because it's a very popular system used throughout the country. Now, Microsoft owns Nuance, and Nuance is a voice recognition system. So they partnered with Epic. Microsoft partnered with Epic to build a system that can do electronic clinical notes through ChatGPT, essentially, with GPT-4 the more advanced version of ChatGPT. And the idea is to be able to, again, facilitate either real time or after a medical visit, Microsoft Nuance AI create the clinical notes for the physician. And they expect to have a test this summer of 2023. And then in the fall of 2023, begin to roll it out in some pilots. So it's really pretty interesting. Let's take a look at Cerner. As many of you know, Cerner was purchased by Oracle. So Oracle now has developed a healthcare cloud, an Oracle cloud infrastructure. And this slide on the right is pretty busy, so don't worry about the details here. But I just put some arrows here to sort of show the focus. The focus here is on the medical center, on really helping the medical center collect information from devices, from their radiology information system, from PACS, your archival communication system, the imaging systems in radiology, all of the electronic medical record information, and put it through, its sort of decision support system with AI and help the physicians create records and create alerts and really support the physician in terms of documentation and maybe some decision support as well. But the concept here is to move data from the medical center into the Oracle Cloud and to pass it through with this orange arrow on the bottom left here to other providers and other external organizations. So they're very organizational focused in terms of research, medical facilities, medical centers, collecting that information, moving it through their AI platform, creating summaries, and creating some decision support. So we'll see where that all goes, but that's their game plan right now. Amazon has had some initiatives in healthcare for quite a while now, and they've created more of a Internet of Things, an IoT architecture. So again, this slide's not quite as busy as the Cerner Oracle one, but as you can see here in the center, there's a home gateway. So the concept is to collect information from the home, whether it's a biomedical device on the person or the room, the environment, sleep patterns, uh, smartphone information. The whole idea is to collect the Internet of Things, the IoT architecture, the IoT data, and pull it through the cloud on the right-hand side, and then be able to go through the data and have the significant information, not flood the family or the caregivers with data, but the exceptions, the important information, changes and trends, and move that along to the caregiver as alerts and to the family. So the concept here is to be more focused around the patient, and particularly when the patient's not in an organization like in a medical center. So that's a bit of a different focus with this architecture that Amazon is portraying here. This article in Beckers Health IT, June 22nd, 2023, also speaks to Amazon investing over $100 million in generative AI. So they're actually creating an AI center of excellence within the corporation, specifically for healthcare. And notwithstanding the earlier slide, the presentation about the Internet of Things, if you see the bottom sentence here speaks to healthcare and life science customers, including generative AI for research discovery, not just for patient care, but also for research and long-term studies. So this is only going to accelerate among all these vendors, I'm sure. So IBM has been in healthcare with AI for quite a number of years with their Watson products, their Watson AI. They haven't had much success some the last several years, even though they started probably 7, 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago in healthcare, trying to introduce AI with their Watson. They're reinitiating with a product called Merative, and we'll see where it takes us, and whether they're going to focus on research or patient care, maybe both. We'll see, but where IBM is will be playing. They're also, and they have been in the past, worked significantly with the insurance companies for fraud, AI, and machine learning for fraud. So that'll probably be an area in which they will also continue to penetrate. Google has some significant initiatives in healthcare. And this one slide shows you the vast number of products that they either jointly own or own outright, services and products that are all healthcare related. So Google has all the ingredients to launch a next generation healthcare clinic. We'll see where it takes them. It's probably take, a decade or more to really implement something like this, as you are probably aware. If you work in healthcare, this is not a simple industry. It's a pretty significantly complex industry. But we'll see that what they want to do in terms of introducing their processes and their technologies and AI for some sort of futuristic healthcare clinic. I thought this was an interesting article in Beckers Healthcare recently, June 29th, 2023, and speaks to a number of large tech companies and other just large companies that are involved looking to penetrate further into the healthcare industry. So some we talked about, like Google and Amazon, but they've listed here Optum again, which is a clinic system that United Health's been expanding and expanding on Long Island fairly significantly. They talk about Apple and CVS, Microsoft, Walmart. So there's a number of large companies, some technologically based traditionally, that are looking to penetrate into the healthcare industry in the future. So we'll see where this takes us, but it's challenging, and we'll see in the next slide how challenging it might be. So we've seen in the last few slides the number of companies that are very interested in penetrating healthcare and redesigning healthcare and bringing us to a futuristic model of healthcare and introducing AI. Well, you might have heard some years ago, Amazon, JP Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway had a healthcare venture, collapsed back in 2021. That's when this article was written in the Wall Street Journal. So in spite of the amount of money and effort and dedication and sophistication that these large companies had to try to create some new kind of healthcare environment or healthcare system, it failed. So we'll see what happens. There's AI now that's much more advanced, and there are a number of plays as we saw in the earlier slides. But this is a difficult, complex, challenging industry. So we'll see who wins and what the pitfalls are and what we learn and grow out of these initiatives from all these companies. But it's challenging, as you can see. I'd like to introduce you to Vinay Prasad if you haven't heard of him yet. He has a podcast called the Sensible Medicine Podcast. Very interesting. So this first video here on the right, it's like 15 minutes. You really all should watch it. It's really kind of required for the class. I want you to watch it. Really, really interesting. He speaks to a number of things that AI might help in terms of advancing the healthcare industry. So automated chart summaries. We sort of talked about that a little bit earlier with some of the other slides. Supports replies to patient emails. So there are some physicians that are using ChatGPT to develop, they can't type as quickly as ChatGPT can type, and they could take that, copy it, edit it a little bit, cut out some of the extra information and detail that they feel may not be relevant, and use that for a reply to patients. Of course, that might be automated in the future. You wouldn't have a physician going to ChatGPT, cutting and pasting and editing and saying it to the patient. But some of the physicians are saying it helps them because they're not necessarily very fast typists. This might support medical decisions as well. Finding that also for research to support generating basic research to start someone off from the beginning research in an area, and maybe even to help in peer reviews. And actually, Vinay also speaks to what the characteristics of future physicians may be. I think this is his thinking out loud and his prediction. But if AI becomes so robust that, again, he says right now, ChatGPT may not be completely accurate, but it might not be as good as the average physician, but it might be better than the worst physicians, and that may be true. And I've been using it myself just to kind of get a feel for it myself in terms of diagnostics and see what it can do. But what he's saying, and again, it's just his thought, that physicians in the future may not be the best and the brightest. It may be more important to have a physician because the brain may be the AI machine now, and you may not need the most sophisticated, intelligent, academic-minded person to be a physician. Not sure he's right about this, but he's saying maybe more important to express empathy. Physicians will be the individuals that express empathy more and that have more tactile sophistication. That the tactile uh, uh, skills in terms of setting up IVs or doing surgery, whether it's minor surgery in dermatology or something more sophisticated, that the tactile skills may be really the important part of a physician in the future if the brain is going to be somewhere else, if it's going to be, with resting with AI. So it's really interesting. I highly recommend this other uh, podcast here. It's 2 hours. It's four physicians speaking about ChatGPT and their experience. It's optional for the class. I recommend it. I think you'll find it really, really interesting. I'm not a physician, as you know, but I found it very interesting and enlightening. And it was just, kind of fun to listen to what physicians say about ChatGPT. So please take time to listen to this 15-minute interview, the one on top. And I highly recommend if you're driving somewhere, have some time, cutting the grass or doing some mundane activity where you need to keep your brain moving, you might want to listen to this 1 hour podcast as well. Really good stuff on Vinay's podcast in general. These two I selected because I thought it was very apropos for the class. Okay, so let's talk about a caveat now. So I redacted the information on some of the information on this letter because it came from one of my partners. I do consulting, IT consulting, and this letter went out from this company that I'm a subcontractor for. Went to all their employees and subcontractors to really warn them about the risks of using ChatGPT for research. So essentially, what's happened is Samsung, some of their programmers are working on some new advanced programming, having some difficulty with it, and put it into ChatGPT because there's this subproduct called Codex that can actually take your code and fix it or advance it, or even take natural language and create code from it. So they were using it to advance the code that they were having some problems with. And then they realized subsequently that they were putting out to ChatGPT, perhaps the world, some new proprietary, programming code. So that became sort of a red flag for everyone in the industry. And this company, again, I just redacted their name because I didn't get legal permission to say who they are. Sent this letter to everyone, and I received it. Now they encourage in the second hour here. They talk about privately learning AI. They want you to learn AI and they want you to understand it. But if you want to use AI for business for this company, you have to get approval in advance because they don't want their special sauce. They don't want their secrets or the things that they're working on, their newer IP, intellectual properties, to be publicized within ChatGPT because that company, OpenAI, I'm sure is collecting information to use for themselves and maybe resell, or perhaps it might, whatever you put in could potentially become an answer for some other company that's working on something similar as AI learns and becomes more knowledgeable based on the information it's consuming from the users. So, again, they caution here in the fourth arrow, exclude corporate and client IP, intellectual property. And when I read this, I thought, well, university researchers face very similar IP risks. So whether it's IT or healthcare or chemistry or math or whatever the science is, that whatever the research is, researchers probably have to have some guidelines and some boundaries about what they put into any AI system because it could be reused either by the company that owns the AI system collecting this information, or it could potentially be used real time for a similar query coming from another user of this AI system. So I thought that would be an interesting caveat that we all should be aware of. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. This is the list of the items that we covered in this last presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to email me for the class. I'd be looking forward to seeing what kind of dialogue happens in the online discussion board for the class as well. I'm sure this might generate some conversation. So again, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Have a good evening.